Tigris and Euphrates, the land between two rivers.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes, sir.
it appears a couple students have went to Blackboard Collab instead of going
No,
to Zoom.
Tell them that when I sent on the email to them, they have to go to Blackboard and not collaborate. And I sent on the link to them to Zoom. I'm not using Blackboard Collaborate.
Because it appears 6 students are in here, and I sent the link to them.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So while you do, well, I'm glad you did that. So I want you all to create a group me. Can you create it for me, sir? What's your name?
Jordan Stanford.
Jordan, create a group me so that in case, send on the link to everyone.
Okay.
We are using the same link for the class. I'm not changing the passcode nor the ID. I'm using that throughout from now until the class ends, right? If a problem emerges, then I will change the passcode and ID. But for now, we are using the same passcode, same ID for our classes, sure. So, but I sent out an email to everyone instructing them how I'm teaching. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Can you repeat what you wanted us to write down again?
Yeah, when I said Mesopotamia, this is called location. We are looking at location here. So if you want to take down the note location, Mesopotamia was located in Southwest Asia. That's the location. That is where it is located. And most civilizations have 2 rivers or 1 river. And Mesopotamia is called a river civilization. And the rivers are the Tigris and Euphrates. And historians call Mesopotamia the land between 2 rivers. Right? This is Mesopotamia here. And there will be 2 rivers. Look at here. This is Euphrates here. You see with the arrow? This is Euphrates. And this is the Tigris here. So it's the land between 2 rivers. Right? If you go to present day Iraq, you'll see those 2 rivers. So who lived there? Different ethnic groups settled there. The Sumer, Akkad, Babylonia, and Assyria. These were civilizations or ethnic groups that I pointed out here. These are ethnic groups, and from one period of another, they were fighting each other for power. One group will rule, and then will fall, another group will take over, etc., etc. Now, Mesopotamia, in addition to being called the land between 2 rivers, is also called the cradle of civilization. So take note of this. It is also called the cradle of civilization. It's a cradle. They call it the cradle of civilization. Right? It is also called the Fertile Crescent. It is called the Fertile Crescent. Why? Because when the river floods, it washes up the soil on the land. And this is it here. This is Iraq, the Fertile Crescent. Right? So you have the 2 rivers. So when it floods, the rich soil comes on the soil, and so we know that tells us that Mesopotamia was an agricultural society. Right? And they practiced agriculture. So again, Mesopotamia, which means between the rivers, or the land between 2 rivers, Euphrates and the Tigris. So it gives us a little geography here. Right? We talk about contemporary Iraq occupies the territory that historians traditionally have considered the site of the earliest civilizations of the ancient Near East. geographically, modern Iraq corresponds to the Mesopotamia of the Old Testament. As I said, if you read the Bible as a history book and you go to the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah and all those, they talk about Mesopotamia. Right, so again, why they call it the Fertile Crescent? Because of the rivers and the deposited soil, good soil. So what is the regional history? Sumer is the ancient name for southern Mesopotamia. Historians are divided on when the Sumerians arrived in the area, but they agree that the population of Sumer was a mixture of linguistic and ethnic groups that included the earlier inhabitants of the region. So the Sumerians were the first people to establish rule. And the Sumerian left us, we'll talk about this, writing, irrigation. This is your contribution to world civilization or global history. Writing, irrigation, the wheel, astronomy and literature. We'll talk about all that. All right, so we talk about writing. What did they left for us? This is the Sumerian writing. Pay attention to this. This is one of the terms in the chapter when you're reading the book. Cuneiform. Cuneiform. That's the writing the Sumerians use. All right, and this is the form it took. So the first people in the world to devise a scheme of written representation as a means of communication. And the writing was called cuneiform. So this is the petrograph, and this is the interpretation. Star, petrograph, stream, pictographic, this is barley, because they grow wheat. And then they have the early writings, this is how it looked like, and then later on, it developed into different things. And as we establish the lesson, I will talk about what was the purpose of the writing, what did they do to write, what was used for the writing, and who performed the writing. We'll talk about all that. We said also that the Sumerians, the Sumerians gave us literature. And this is the literature they gave us. It is called the Epic of Gilgamesh. In fact, this is a book. Gilgamesh, it's a book. It's a literature. They talk about the story of Gilgamesh, who actually was the king of the city-state of Uruk. And he was in search of life. And in fact, when they read the Epic of Gilgamesh, they also have a story about the flood. Remember in the Bible, there's a story about the flood with Noah and the ark. They also have their story about the flood. So this is a literature book. In some schools, when they are doing global history, some professors recommend that students read the Epic of Gilgamesh. We are not doing that because if this was a history class, but only if all of you all were historians, then this class probably would have recommended this book for you to read. Also, the Sumerians were engaged in religion, and they developed different religious centers. This here is their temple, and we'll meet this too. This is called a zuggurat. You'll get to know all these names. I'm just introducing the lesson today, and I'll deepen it on Thursday. This is a zuggurat. This is where they worship their gods. All right. So notice it's not a pyramid. It is built like a pyramid, but it is called a zuggurat. All right. And this is it here. Another picture of it. And this is the word here, Zuggurats. The Sumerians were pantheistic. Or they also practiced polytheism. What does that mean? Anybody can tell me what is polytheism?
Multiple gods.
Right, they worship multiple gods. So this is a Zuggurat. So the priests will bring the sacrifices and whatever they were doing upon the Zuggurat, right? So who performed the religious ceremonies? The priests. So they developed priests. And the priest's role was because they believed in multiple gods, the role of the priest was to ask the gods to intervene in the lives of people. And seeing that they practiced polytheism, they believed in many gods. So the Sumerians, the Babylonians, and other people, they lived in cities. They were city-states. And these are some of the names of the city-states: Uruk, Eridu, Kish, Lagash, Agade, Akashak, Lhasa, and Ur. Notice, remember I told you, Ur was the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad. Sorry, Abraham. Abraham came out from Ur. So if you read the Bible in Genesis, it talks about Abraham leaving his home in Ur and traveling to another place. So these people knew about city living. They were not country dwellers. They were city people. And in the ancient world, each city was walled. Today we call people live in gated communities. In the past, in the ancient world, people also lived in gated communities called cities. The cities had walls. They were gated. And notice, these people knew about bricks. Notice they used bricks. They did not use mud nor straw. They built cities made out of brick. And of course, they had their priests. So, what was their technology? They had brick technology. They knew how to smelt bronze. And they created a wheel. So it was the first nation to use the wheel. Right? So today we don't have we use what? As weapons of destruction. We have technology for the 21st century. This was their technology. Wheel and brick. Right, we talk about Sumer. This is their king. This was their king, Sargon the First. Sargon the First. He is a king. And here they have in their entertainment. This is their form of entertainment. What do you observe here? What do you observe? Tell me your observation of this picture. Anyone?
They got fans because it's really hot.
Huh?
They got fans in there because it's hot.
That's one. What's another observation? It looks like a wedding. What else?
It's like an auction.
It looks like an auction. What?
Does definitely look like an auction.
What else? What do you observe?
A lady getting dressed in the back?
Right, that the woman was separated from the men, right? So it looks like an auction that in the ancient world we learn that women had no voice. And 1 or 2 women were powerful, but in the main, the king had all power and authority. In the ancient world, a king could come into your father's house and see you as a 14-year-old girl and take you away from your father, and your father couldn't say anything. Right? In the ancient world, men had wives and what we call concubines. So a king will have what we call a harem. He'll have his wife, and all these women and other women will be his concubines. And this is how ancient Mesopotamia looked like in ancient time. Right? Notice the palm trees. And we talk about the Fertile Crescent, right? This is the Fertile Crescent here, based on the 2 rivers, Euphrates, and you see, this is a city here, Babylon, another city, another city. So these are some of the kingdoms that rule, right? The ancient kingdoms. This is Mesopotamia here. This is where the Jews live, in this region here. In this chapter 2, we'll talk about Egypt. This is ancient Egypt here. This is Memphis, a city in Egypt. And these are some of the cities here that existed in Mesopotamia: Sumer, Nineveh, Babylonia, Babylon. This is the Euphrates River here. This is the Tigris River. So the land, you see the river covers both sides of the land. This is a slide showing you how they lived, right? Notice these are the rivers here, right? And they are engaging in agriculture, right? And this is again, this is the river, and they are practicing irrigation. This is irrigation. They are bringing the water from the river. So irrigation, today we have modern techniques of doing irrigation. Those of you are taking agriculture, you'll do that. But this is what they practice. So what they did, they developed channels to bring the water from the river to inland. And these were some of the jobs that were available in ancient Sumer. Look at that. Look at all those jobs that you could, right? There were people who were tavern keepers. Young women who own a tavern. Can anybody tell me the modern name for tavern?
A bar.
A bar, right. Yes, in the ancient world and in modern and past modern times, it was called a tavern, right? That's where, so women engage in own bars. Female tavern keeper. You had tax collectors, they collected tolls. A vizier, he was a top government official. You had sheriff, you had singers, perfume makers, confectioners, all types of people here doing all types of stuff. We call this here division of labor or specialization. This is, so you have an accountant, architect, all these are specialized fields. You see, pay attention to this here, the scribe. So I would like you to, in your notes, attach a scribe to cuneiform. Attach, relate scribe to cuneiform. Because the scribes were the ones who did the writing. They were educated people. So attach scribe to cuneiform. attach priests to religion and the Zuggurat. Attach a priest, relate priests to the Zuggurat and religion. So this is in every society we live in, we have class structure or social structure. So in ancient Sumeria, we had the aristocracy, the noble people. Who were they? Administrators, priests, officers in the army. They were rewarded with large estates. Then you had the middle class. And at the bottom of the ladder, you had slaves. So in Mesopotamia, there were two types of slaves. I'd like you to write that down for me. There were two types of slaves in Mesopotamia. There were debtor slaves, D-E-B-T-O-R, debtor slaves. Once you owed a debt in the ancient world, and even up to modern times, you owed a debt, you were sold into slavery. Your wife and your children were say enslaved. And the other type of slave was called chattel slaves. C-H-A-T-T-E-L, chattel slaves. So you have debtor slaves and chattel slaves. We'll talk about that as we go along. We're just going through this slide today. I'll deepen this lesson as I go along. Any questions so far? Any questions? Remember I showed you who was King Sargon, right? This is King Sargon here. And we're going to meet King Sargon. Who was this King Sargon? King Sargon. King Sargon was the world's first empire builder, sending his troops as far as Egypt and Ethiopia. Right? So you see, Sargon, his goal was to become powerful and conquer other people. Look at these cities here. These are the places. These are cities here. So King Sargon sent his troops to Egypt and Ethiopia. We know that Ethiopia is the land of the blacks. At one time, Africa was referred to as Ethiopia. Right? So Ethiopia is an ancient place in Africa. It's ancient. And so they had relationships with, so let me ask you something. If Sargon sent his troops to Ethiopia and Egypt in Africa, what do you think happened? What will happen to these people when they came to Mesopotamia? Tell me, anyone? Put on your critical thinking skills.
Would have left. They would have left their place unprotected. All
right, so they were captured and they came here. So some of them will be absorbed where? In the society. So black people here in Ethiopia will end up living in this region. If a man from Ethiopia, it was also a trade. Somebody here doing economics. There's trading taking place with Mesopotamia, Egypt and Ethiopia. People are traveling from Egypt into Mesopotamia. Some came and remained, and some went back to their homes. So black people were living also here, because if you send troops, when you conquer people, you bring some back to your land as captives. So note King Sargon in your research. if you go on the, let me see. Let me take you, hold on, I'll come back to that. Let me take you to, if you're doing a research on King Sargon, use this site here, Ancient History Encyclopedia. For all your research in this class, go to Ancient History Encyclopedia, and you'll see who this Sargon was. It tells you everything about Sargon. If you want to know about Sargon and what he did, it gives you all the information about Sargon. So for this class, I want you, when you're doing your extra research, apart from the book, I want you to go to Ancient History Encyclopedia. Go to this site here, and you'll get all your information about all the civilizations that we are studying. Is that clear? I don't want you to use Wikipedia. That is not a, don't use this. Wikipedia is not a good historical site. You can read it for background, but it's not a good site for history, because anybody can write about that. So I don't want you to document anything from Wikipedia, but I want you to go to Ancient. I want you to go here. This website. You can join, you can become a member if you want, whatever you want to do, right? So King Sargon. We talk about the Akkadians. They were one group of people who ruled Mesopotamia.
They were rulers?
Yeah, the Akkadians were one of the rulers of Mesopotamia. Yeah, they were rulers. Akkad, the city, they were from a city called Akkad, A-K-K-A-D, and they were called Akkadians. Right? Remember, in the ancient world, these people are living in city-states. The Akkadians. Another group that ruled Mesopotamia, this is a city called Babylon. And this is what archaeologists unearthed. Our friends archaeologists unearthed the ancient city of Babylon. This is part of Babylon. Hilla, Iraq in Babylon. This is what they unearthed. When the United States left Iraq, we know that ISIS took over, right? And what the ISIS people were doing, they were destroying all the ancient places in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia has ancient places still intact. Because one of the things that Saddam Hussein wanted to do, he wanted to recreate the old Mesopotamia. In fact, he had printed a coin with himself on both sides of the coin. So the Babylonians were also rulers of Mesopotamia. And how did we know that? From our friends, the archaeologists. This is what archaeologists do. They look for ancient places and they unearth them. And this is what it looks like today, you see? And this is what ISIS and them were trying to destroy. So if you go to Iraq today, you'll see many of these ancient buildings still existing in some form or another. And again, this is a part of it here. And to know this is true, look at this. Hilla, Iraq, May 29, 2003. A U.S. Marine Corps Humvee vehicle drives down a road at the foot of Saddam Hussein's former summer place with the ruins of ancient Babylon in the background. This is where Saddam Hussein used to come and spend his summer. And you see, ancient Babylon. Because, as I said, You see, this is the river here. Saddam Hussein had plans to recreate the old Mesopotamian empire. That was his dream. Another group that will rule Mesopotamia are called the Amorites. The Amorites. The Amorites. That's another group. The Amorites. So they established cities on the Tigris and the Euphrates River. This is the Tigris, and these are the cities they established. This is the Euphrates, this is the Tigris here. The land between two rivers. And we will see, pay attention to the fourth bullet, the Code of Hammurabi. This is important. You'll need this in your reading. This was one of the first established law codes in the world. This came before the Ten Commandments, the Code of Hammurabi. And Hammurabi was a king. And that code spelled out everything about land tenure, rent, the position of women, marriage, divorce, inheritance, contracts, control of public order, administration of justice, wages, and labor conditions. Can someone tell me what was the law based in the ancient world on? What was it called? What was it based on? Can someone tell me? It was based on, in the ancient world, it was, you can write this down, an eye for an eye. Eye for an eye. What does that mean? What does that mean?
You hit me, I'll hit you back.
Right. So in the ancient world, in Babylon, if you stole people's land or stole people's goods, your hand was chopped off. In the ancient world, if you committed adultery, you were stoned to death, etc., etc. It was based on an eye for an eye, and the Code of Hammurabi spelled out how it was enforced on everything, on land to labor conditions. And this is it here. It was placed on brick. This is the king here, Hammurabi, or Hammurabi, or Hammurabi, the code. All right. The law, this was the law of the land, the code, the law of the land in Mesopotamia. So you had two types of codes, criminal and civil. Criminal laws dealt with offenses against others, right? And you had civil law dealt with things like contracts, marriage, taxes, and divorce. Much of the code was designed to protect the powerless. Because we know that in the ancient world, the powerful took advantage of the powerless. So when you're doing so again, look at this code here. The code provided that punishment should be similar to the crime. You do the crime, you do the time. Under this principle, breaking another person's arm in anger is punished by having your own arm broken. For certain crimes, people could be put to death. Many laws warn lawbreakers of what to expect. A person who accidentally broke the law was just as guilty as someone who meant to break the law. The code was carved in stone and placed in public places for all to see. In other words, you could not, in the ancient Mesopotamia, you could not say you did not know the law because it was carved in stone and was placed in public places. You see, and it spelled out certain things. If anyone steal the minor son of another, he shall be put to death. If anyone is committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death. If anyone opens his ditches to water his crop, but is careless and the water flood the field of his neighbor, then he shall pay his neighbor for his loss. If a surgeon causes the death of his patient, his hand shall be cut off. If his son strike his father, his hand shall be cut off. So the law spelled out the punishment for the crime you did in ancient days. Now all countries trade with each other. And this is how they traded. They use what we call caravans, and this was the mode of transport, donkeys and camels. And they are going through the desert. And they were trading with Egypt, and they were trading with India, they were trading with Africa, Ethiopia, and those places. And we know the time travel was months and years. So when they were traveling, they came with their entourage. If you think about the three wise men came from this region. And when they came to Jerusalem, they didn't come by themselves. They came with their troops, their protection, and other people. Two other groups that ruled over Mesopotamia were called the Hittites and the Kassites. Right? They allied and they took control of the region. Another powerful group that ruled Mesopotamia were called the Assyrians. The Assyrians. And look at this here. See what they built? You see, they knew about traveling on the water. They built ships and boats. This is a palace. And these were some of the Assyrian kings. And the Assyrians were some of the most dreaded armies in the ancient world. They were a vicious army. The Assyrians, they were powerful people. And this is what they built on the banks of the river. So these people were sophisticated people. They knew about architecture. They knew about building ships with sails. Because they were traders. And the Assyrians built a city called Nineveh. And Nineveh had one of the largest world. And this is what the archaeologists found. So they knew about record keeping. And in that library had thousands of books. Nineveh, again, if you really had the history of the Bible as a history book, there's a story about Jonah and the whale. Jonah was sent to Nineveh. And the story said he disobeyed God and he was cast into the belly of a fish. So Nineveh is an ancient city. And these are the Assyrian people. They were warrior people. They liked to fight and conquer. They were conquerors. They had one of the most proficient war machines. They had a standing army. Sennacherib, he was the king. He built the city called Nineveh, Sennacherib. And when he conquered people, he became a vassal. So he conquered Judah, he conquered Babylon and all these cities. So the Assyrians at one time were rulers of Mesopotamia. They had a very big, vicious army. And this is And this is why they were powerful. They created what we call the battering ram, an instrument to pound down the city walls. Later on, the Romans will take this and develop it, and the Romans will become a very powerful army. But it was the Assyrians who developed the battering ram. It was the Assyrians who used catapults. And they had they threw rocks at the enemies, and they protected their archers. They had their archers with helmets and armor. Later on, the Romans will modernize this technique. They used their chariots. So they were riding on chariots and horses. So the Assyrians. Another group that will conquer Mesopotamia were the Medes and the Chaldeans. The Medes and the Chaldeans. And these were called Neo-Babylonians. The word New Babylon. They created a new Babylon. So another group, so you had the Medes and the Chaldeans, and then the Chaldeans ruled alone, and then came the Persians. The Persians conquered the land. This is King Nebuchadnezzar. Right? If you read the story in the Bible about King Nebuchadnezzar, and he created, during the Chaldean time, they created the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. One king made this for his wife. Created this whole place. This was one of the wonders of the world. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So the Persians conquered Babylon, conquered Mesopotamia. So you see all these groups, Chaldeans and Persians, Medes and Chaldeans, the Assyrians, the Hittites and the Kassites, the Amorites, the Akkadians, and you have the Sumerians. So these were some of the main groups that conquered the land of Mesopotamia. And as I said, I will deepen this lesson. I will post another slide and we will talk about it again in more detail. So again, if you want to know more about, again, you could come here and type, go to the website. If you go here, you will see again to the history. You'll see everything here about ancient Mesopotamia. Right? They'll give you a snippet of ancient Mesopotamia. Everything you want to know. So in addition to my notes, to the book, you have extra, and you see, to know this is authentic. This is the author, right? So this is authentic. This is an authentic website. Ancient. So go to ancient. Go to so use this website. Show the class. So anything you want is there. And then if you want to get more information, National Geographic has something on ancient Mesopotamia on YouTube. So you have things you can look at, right? So this is I said I will deepen this lesson on Thursday. We'll complete it, Mesopotamia, and then we'll go to ancient Egypt next week. So chapter 2 deals with some major civilization. When we finish with chapter 2, we'll do chapter 3. We'll go to ancient India, then we'll go to China, and so forth and so on. Any questions so far? Any questions?
So is this PowerPoint something we can like look up on Blackboard?
Well, the PowerPoint is on Blackboard. It's there. I posted it. I'll post another one again. It's on Blackboard. This PowerPoint that I use here today, this one is on Blackboard. It's on Blackboard. It's available to you. It's there.
Okay, thank you.
I'll post another one again, and I'll use it on Thursday, so you will have that to read and study it, and again in addition. But I want all of you to get a copy of the book, because it is from the book I'm giving your exams. And the exams, for instance, before I take the roll, I'll show you something. The exams, will be about definitions, right? On your book, you'll see it might be called terms. You will see terms. And you might see the term cuneiform. That's a term. Now for the exam, I want you to write me a well-developed paragraph. And after you write the paragraph, you will document your source. So if you get it from www.ancient.eu education, or if you get it from www.national geographic, tell me where you get it from. Document your source. So remember, writing is about what? Who, what, where, why, who, what, where, when, why, and how. So if you're writing on cuneiform, tell me what it is, what it was, because we're writing in the past tense, right? What it was, because cuneiform is not a person, what it was. Where was it practiced? So you can say it was practiced in ancient, you can say ancient Mesopotamia. When? Give me a time period, What time period? Why? Why was cuneiform used? Why? Why was it used, and how was it used? And it is here now, when you're writing about cuneiform, you will talk about the role of what? Scribes. Scribes played an important role in cuneiform development. So you give me a well-developed paragraph. You cannot write, in other words, for the midterm, let's say I give you 10 terms, right? 10 terms. You cannot write me 2 lines and expect 10 terms will be worth 10 points. Right? Two lines will not cut it. You have to write me a well-developed paragraph. So as we go along, I will explain the exam to you so you will know what to do. So writing is who, when, why, and how, and it is also this. It is when you begin to write, you begin with a topic what? A topic sentence. And then you expand that sentence. You can expand it, you can explain, and then you elaborate. You elaborate, and then you give your examples. Your examples or from your readings. And the last thing you'll do, you terminate it, you close it off. So this here is the same thing like this. This is just a sophisticated form of this. Right? So as again, we'll talk about the exam and I'll show you what I want from you in terms of how you will answer the terms and how you document the terms. So with that said, let me go and take the roll today. And I want to instruct you all that this is important because this is the university system that tracks you all. It is called Navigate. It's called Navigate. So I'm in Navigate because to get into Navigate, I have to go through my phone. This is me. This is my system here, and all your professors will be using this. So I'm going to record my class attendance today. And we are in History 10301. And voila, here you are. So is Mohammed Al-Hamadi here?